The sentence was short, cold, and final. "I can't watch you struggle like this." She reread it until the words blurred, until her hands began to shake so badly she had to sit down on the edge of her small bed. Outside, rain tapped against the window in a steady rhythm, as if the city itself was listening to her heart break apart. She had imagined many reactions from him: shock, fear, even anger, but not abandonment wrapped in polite distance. Not silence dressed as concern. 5 minutes earlier she had still believed that love might save them. She had believed that truth, however heavy, would be enough. Now she understood how wrong she had been. She typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted that too. The phone felt heavier with every second that passed. Finally she locked the screen and pressed it to her chest, as if that might stop the ache spreading through her ribs. In her reflection on the dark glass, her eyes looked older than they had that morning. Across the city, in a tower of glass and steel, he stood alone in his office long after everyone had gone home. The skyline glowed beneath his windows, but inside, everything felt dim. He told himself he had done the right thing. He told himself that walking away was an act of mercy. Yet his hands trembled as he set the phone down, and for the first time in years, success felt like a fragile excuse. Neither of them knew that this moment, this single message, was not an ending, but the first step toward a reunion that would arrive 5 years later in the most unexpected way, carried on the sound of laughter that would stop him in his tracks. The days after that message moved strangely, as if time itself had lost its balance. For him, hours blurred into meetings, contracts, and late-night lights that never seemed to turn off. The world called him brilliant, unstoppable, a rising star whose decisions shaped thousands of lives. Yet at night, when the city finally fell quiet, only one unspoken name echoed through his thoughts. He never said it aloud. He convinced himself that silence was strength. For her, life became a series of quiet battles no one else could see. She left the city without telling anyone where she was going, carrying only a suitcase and a heart heavy with unanswered questions. In a small town where the mountains touched the sky, she found work that paid little but offered dignity. She learned how to be strong in silence. Each morning she reminded herself that she had survived yesterday, and that had to be enough. Years stretched forward, filled with words that were never sent and memories that refused to fade. He chased victories that grew larger but felt strangely empty. She built a life that was modest but real, measured not in wealth but in resilience. And somewhere between his towering success and her quiet persistence, the space between them grew heavy with everything they had never said. What neither of them realized was that time was carefully reshaping them for a moment neither could escape. A moment when the past would rise without warning, carried not by pain, but by a sound so pure and familiar it would break through every wall he had built. 5 years later, winter returned softly to the world, and with it came a celebration no one could have predicted. The mountain resort prepared for its busiest season, glowing with warm lights, fresh snowfall, and the quiet promise of new beginnings. She moved through the lobby with practiced calm, guiding staff, straightening decorations, and offering gentle smiles to tired travelers. Her life had become a rhythm of responsibility and quiet joy. She no longer waited for apologies that never came. She no longer checked her phone for messages that would never arrive. And yet, fate was closer than she knew. That evening, he stepped into the resort for a private corporate retreat. He had agreed to the trip without thinking twice. To him, locations no longer mattered. Every hotel felt the same. Every celebration felt distant. As he walked across the polished floor, his assistant speaking softly beside him, his attention drifted without purpose, until a sound cut clean through the noise. Laughter. Not just one voice. 3. Bright, unrestrained, alive. He slowed without realizing it. The sound tugged at something deep within him, a memory he had locked away because it felt too dangerous to touch. The laughter rushed closer, light footsteps followed, and suddenly 3 small figures darted past him, bundled in winter clothes, chasing each other with boundless excitement. Their eyes flashed with energy. Their smiles reflected something achingly familiar. For a breathless second, time stood still. Then he turned, compelled by a feeling he could not name, and saw her standing across the lobby, older, stronger, radiant in a quiet way, just as the boys ran back into her open arms. He didn't move at first. He wasn't sure if his body would obey him if he tried. The world narrowed to one impossible picture: her smile, softer than memory yet stronger than before, and the 3 children clinging to her as if she were the center of their universe. Their laughter wrapped around her like music. It was warm. It was real. And it unsettled him in a way no business loss ever had. She felt it then, the subtle shift in the air, the unmistakable weight of being seen. Her smile faded slowly as she lifted her gaze. For a moment, neither of them breathed. 5 years fell away in the space between their eyes. Regret surfaced in his before he could hide it. Surprise, then calm, passed through hers. The boys tugged at her hands, asking eager questions, pulling her back to the present. She knelt to their level, whispered something gentle, and sent them toward the grand holiday display nearby. Only when they were out of earshot did she straighten and face him fully. "You look, well," she said, her voice steady but distant, as if she were speaking to someone she once knew in another lifetime. He searched for words worthy of the moment. None came. Silence once again stood between them, heavy, familiar. "I heard them laugh," he finally said. "It stopped me." A flicker of something crossed her face, pain, perhaps, or memory, but it passed quickly. "They tend to do that." In his chest, questions surged like a rising tide. But fear still hovered close, whispering that some truths arrived too late. And yet, as the children's laughter rang out again behind her, he felt the unmistakable pull of a destiny he had tried to outrun. They spoke later that night in a quiet corner of the resort cafe, where the windows looked out onto falling snow and the noise of celebration softened into a distant hush. Between them rested 2 untouched cups of tea, steam curling upward like the breath they kept holding in. The words came slowly at first, safe questions, careful answers. Or the town, the seasons, everything except the truth that hovered between them like a living thing. Finally she said, "I didn't disappear to punish you. I left to survive." Her eyes were steady now, no anger in them, only clarity. "I needed peace. And I found it." He nodded, ashamed of how long it had taken him to understand that peace and distance were not the same thing. "I told myself I was protecting you," he whispered. "But I was only protecting my fear." For the first time the wall between them cracked. From across the lobby, one of the boys suddenly called her name, waving excitedly. Another followed, and then the third, their voices overlapping in joyful chaos. He watched her turn toward them instinctively, warmth flooding her face without effort. In that instant, the truth connected inside him with quiet certainty. Those children were not strangers bound by chance. They were the living echo of everything he had once been too afraid to claim. "You don't owe me anything," she said softly, as if sensing his thoughts. Not answers. Not explanations. But he did owe something, to them, to her, to the man he had failed to become. And for the first time in 5 years he chose not to run from that truth. Morning arrived wrapped in soft snowfall and quiet possibility. He stood in the lobby holding 3 small cups of hot cocoa, unsure why his hands were unsteady. The boys approached him without hesitation, curiosity brighter than caution. One asked about the mountains. Another wanted to know why his coat looked so heavy. The third simply smiled at him, wide and trusting, and something in his chest shifted. She watched from a distance, unsure what this moment would become. Life had taught her not to expect miracles, only steady progress. Yet seeing him kneel slightly to meet the children at eye level, listening instead of leading, stirred something she hadn't felt in years, hope that felt careful but real. Later, as the sun rose higher and the snow softened into light, they stood together outside, the boys building a crooked little snow figure between them. No one spoke of the past in full. Some stories don't need to be retold to be understood. What mattered was this moment, the way laughter no longer sounded like regret but like renewal. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like," he said quietly. She smiled. "Neither do I. But today is enough." And for the first time in 5 years he believed that too. Sometimes, the message that once broke a heart becomes the very path that leads it home again, changed, humbled, and finally ready to listen.